There we go. Welcome. I just listened to some YouTube, but we are here live, Scoring House Promotions. Another day, another live stream. Here to chat about Freemasonry and our health. So, gonna give it a bit of time, see who shows up and who joins us, and then we'll go from there. As always, it usually takes about half an hour for people to start showing up. So at that point is when we're going to get started. But I do think there's some really interesting and unique parallels to discuss when it comes to Freemasonry and our health, and how Freemasonry, two ways. First, the way Freemasonry can impact our health, and also the way that Freemasonry should consider maybe health. And what I mean by that, we'll discuss soon. In the meantime, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and jump on. Actually, we'll start with the first poll question. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? Oops. Hello, Courtney. Good to see you. Hope that you're doing well. Like I said, just going to give it a bit of time, see who joins us, and then we will chat about Freemason people's health. Don't forget, hit that like button. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. The more likes and subscriptions, the better it is for the stream. Oh, we got one vote. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for that one vote so far. We're talking more about what I mean by that precisely shortly. But in the meantime, welcome everybody here today to talk about Freemasonry people's health. It's on my mind because I'm not the best by any means, but I'm trying to be better at health. I'm going to my daughter's appointments, et cetera, et cetera. I have my blood drawn today, getting all that stuff checked out. So I want to talk about what that can mean. But it'll take a few minutes enough for people to jump on the stream. So we got a bit of time. Thought I heard something there for a second. Thank you for the one vote coming in. And tomorrow, I'm trying to do these every day at 1 p.m. It's tough because tomorrow I will be traveling. I'll be on a bus, but I'm going to try my best to do a very brief live stream from the bus, even if I can, or maybe one earlier. But I find daily 1 p.m. live streams helps to get more people. I jump in my vote. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that vote right away. It is much appreciated. That's kind of one of the things I love about these streams is getting the chance to hear people's answers to these poll questions, help us figure out how we're approaching Freemasonry and how lodges are approaching it. We talk a lot about guarding the west gate, but the question is going to be, what does that mean? What are we guarding for? What are we guarding against? Both of those are pretty, I think, valid questions that we need to ask. All right, I'm going to put this over here. Sorry about that. Just making sure I can see everything. I'll be back in just 1 second, I promise. All right, I'm back. So, hi, Cameron. When I need any rides to doctor's appointments, I have trouble getting rides. I have no trouble getting rides from Masonic friends of mine. Good, as it should be. So, I'm very happy about that. Tell your Masonic buddies I say thank you for that. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw, I'll be back in Winnipeg on the 20th, and the location where they're holding the excuse me, the location where they are holding the Wrestling United show, Park Theater, sold out the entire first row in like a day. So there you go. Wrestling United is rocking it out. On a completely separate note, I know from Freemasonry, but nonetheless, something I like to chat about is my love of wrestling, one of my favorite things. Speaking of being physically fit, you got to be physically healthy to do that. So I saw something there, Dad. Sorry about your message or chatted. I saw something there about the Grand Lodge of Manitoba. I know that they have a lot of different programs for people with cancer or whatever it might be, getting them to and from their cancer treatments. So good for the Grand Lodge of Manitoba. We had a great stream yesterday, by the way, which was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to this one here today. Give it that half an hour mark, see who shows up, and we can go from there. It is also the You Deserve PIT, You Deserve Pitch, January 2025, which I'm actually going to be taking part in tonight. So if you guys are on the X, on the Twitter, I hope you'll join me as I take part in that. I'm going to be sharing all of my different Masonic pitches for movies, ideas, see if I can swap support, all that good stuff. Still to vote, should Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? 1 yes, 1 no. If you said no, let me know why. You maybe said no in there also. Yes, wonderful live stream. Camera from my understanding, there's another fire in Los Angeles, not getting better, I suppose. I heard there's another fire as well, which definitely concerns me quite a bit. For obvious reasons, I think it should concern everybody. We talked a lot about helping people out who dealt with the fires and the Masonic efforts at relief, as well as just efforts to relief in general in Los Angeles and where to support. I'm sure you can still support to those same causes now. I'm sure that they're still needing support and people helping each other out. I have no doubt. The Grand Lodge Manitoba has 5 cancer cards which transport cancer patients to their treatments by volunteers. I know about that. I was actually hoping to maybe do one day a live stream about that, or a podcast about that in particular, and about these cancer cards and the way they assist people transporting to and from cancer treatments, which credit to them, obviously, right? Obvious credit to them all the way. It's one of those things, right? It's a little thing, but like, you're dealing with cancer. That sucks, obviously. Having to then add on everything else that you may have to deal with, being able to know that at least your rides are taken care of. That is a really important thing, right? And it's just another thing that you can take off the plate of somebody who's obviously struggling already with cancer and what that's going to mean. So good for the Grand Lodge of Manitoba. Well done. Seven planets are lining up. I need to get me a telescope. Yeah, I keep hearing about this. 7 planets lining up, and Freemasons should care about astronomy, in fairness. When are they lining up? I'm very curious about that. February 28th, 2025, when 7 planets, Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, Venus, Uranus, Jupiter, and Mars, will align in the sky. Learn about planetary alignment and how to observe them with a colorful. You will need to get yourself a telescope. Absolutely. Just going to give it a bit more time. See who joins us. I've done a whole bunch of stuff and had a bunch of podcasts about astrophysics, astronomy. The last car they got, they have 5, was donated by a car dealership. Good for the car dealership. I support that 100%. I think, yeah, like I said, Manitoba, the Grand Lodge Manitoba and their cancer cars is an awesome thing, I think, to see. And again, it's one of those things that takes one potential cause of stress away from the person suffering from the cancer, right? They've already got enough things to stress about: doctor's appointments, medications, having cancer, how they're going to manage cancer in their job, maybe whatever else the strain may be. At least they can take that one thing off their plate. Looks like a couple of days ago, 6 stars were visible in the sky. So good day, good couple months for people in the astronomy circles. Just giving you a bit of time to see who else joins us. What I might do is jump on and invite some people in. Usually, like I said yesterday, we got the majority of our people actually showing up closer to 2 hours in, and we had a really great conversation. So it was a blast, but we'll see who shows up this time around. Yeah, we tend not to talk politics as a general rule. We can't talk politics in lodge. Outside of lodge, we can, but I try to. I have my personal account where I do and will talk politics more, both my past history in politics as well as just in general, my thoughts. This one, I try to be a little bit more neutral on the politics and focus more on how I think Freemasonry will be or can be affected by the politics of the day. So, for example, yesterday, one thing we talked about a little bit was tariffs, potential tariffs, and how that might affect Masonic buildings and Masonic lodges in Canada, as well as the US, as well as Mexico. Another thing I've talked about in the past are exchange rates, and the exact same thing, how those exchange rates affect Canada and the US, and travel, including but not limited to Masonic travel. So I don't try to say whether, for example, at least here as much, whether I think Donald Trump is good or bad, or Joe Biden is good or bad. I more try to just look at what's happening and try to figure out to what extent Freemasonry may be affected by it. While also looking at some of the more broad, if you want to call them political trends, you can. I would call them more sociological trends about what people view as important versus not important in society and how those views will shape their views on Freemasonry. I mean, there's been many times in history where Freemasonry has been politically connected, if that's the right term, politically, like where Freemasonry has kind of been forced into the political realm, most notably the anti-Masonic Party in American history. So yeah, I used it 20 years ago when I was having radiation treatments for prostate cancer. Yeah, I remember you telling me that. So thank you to them for driving my dad. Much appreciated. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? 3 votes, 2 no, 1 yes. To the people who said no, let me know why. And the people just joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Jump in the chat, say hello. About half an hour in is when I usually start providing information on the topics. Today's topic, Freemasonry and health. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways Freemasonry benefits and improves people's health. But I have talked about that a lot on past live streams and podcasts, so I don't want to go too deep into that. Today, my focus more is going to be on this question here. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? And also, you can even argue, should Freemasonry concern itself with the health of its membership during their career? If they are acting in a manner that's unhealthy, they're looking unhealthy, does the lodge have a responsibility to step in, and what does that look like? I'm going to tell you why and what I think about that about half an hour in. But we've got 5 people watching, so please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe, answer the poll question. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? And you can add to that, should an Masonic Lodge consider the health of its membership during their career? For that matter, when a Masonic Lodge is looking at potentially voting in a new worshipful master, should the health of the worshipful master be a consideration? I think that might be worth discussions as well. There's a lot of different aspects to this idea of, right, because you have a Masonic career that exists in so many different phases, from an applicant to a candidate to a entered apprentice to a fellow craft to a master mason to an officer to a worshipful master to a grand lodge officer, etc. Like you can go pretty the extent of a Masonic career is such that it can be a very long one, and there's a lot of different stages. At every stage, I would argue the health of that Mason is going to be pretty important to the lodge, but being worshipful master might be even more important. Being whatever it is you're doing, being a district deputy grandmaster, health might be pretty important. Just an upright man, health shouldn't come into that equation. So I'm guessing my pops was then one of the no's. Let's see who else jumps on and has anything to answer to that poll question before we then go on, and I'll give my take on it and some of my thoughts on this subject. Oh, 4 votes, 3 no's, 1 yes. So thank you to everybody who's voting. Let's keep those votes going, and please jump in the chat, say hello if you can. Let me know where you're from. If you are a Mason, that's awesome. If you're not a Mason, maybe you have questions about Freemasonry. The thing is, I've said this before, I have general ideas and topics I want to talk about, but that doesn't mean there aren't other things worth chatting about also. So I think I'm happy to go off my main topic and talk about anything else that people want to talk about. Paul, hello from Lin Mo. I don't know what Lin Mo is, Paul, but hello to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Blood is thicker than water, but nothing is thicker than brotherhood. True enough. Paul, let me know where you're from. Sorry, Lin Mo. I'm not sure where Lin Mo is, but if you can, let me know if Lynn, Missouri. Okay. I am embarrassed to say I've never had the opportunity to visit Missouri. I consider myself a traveler, but Missouri is one of those places I've never been to. I really want to visit a lodge in Missouri. If you can, Paul, and you're okay, let me know if you're a Mason. If not, also let me know maybe how you found us. Did you find us through YouTube algorithm? Do you follow us? And let me know what your thoughts are on the question. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? Yes or no, what your thoughts are on that subject. And Paul, if you can, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it. I think the closest I've ever been to Missouri in my travels, I got to look at a map, was maybe Texas. I'm just curious now. I am not, but considering your live just popped up on my YouTube. Well, thank you, YouTube, for sharing it. Okay, well, as somebody who is making those considerations, let me know if you have any questions. I've been a Mason since 2007 in Ontario. I don't claim to have all the answers. I certainly don't, but hopefully I can at least lead you in potentially some right directions. So please, by all means, feel free to ask. Like I said, this topic of health, it's just my general idea. A man can enter Freemasonry very healthy, but may lose his health. Do you then kick him out? No, you don't kick him out. But what if he is, let's say, a worshipful master, and then the health issues become such that he may not be able to perform his duties as a worshipful master or district deputy grandmaster or grandmaster? What do you do then? Do you remove him from the chair? Do you ask him to step down? Or do you consider that beforehand? If somebody wants to be a worshipful master, but they seem to have significant health issues, do you take that into consideration when looking at whom to vote? And Paul, like I said, if you'd be so kind as to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. I just want to check where Lynn, Missouri is in comparison to places I've traveled to. Population 1,350. Small town. I love it. I love small towns. Close to it looks like the Mark Twain National Forest. Mark Twain, people may not know, was himself a Freemason. Okay, so Paducah, Kentucky, maybe? I've been to Illinois, but primarily Chicago. Honestly, I may have passed through Lynn on the California Zephyr. Well, like I said, Paul, thanks for joining us, and I'm glad that my live just popped up on your YouTube. Let's give it another 4 or 5 minutes, see who else joins us. And Paul, like I said, If you have the considerations, let me know what they are in terms of being a Freemason, and I'll try my best to answer them. Can't make any promises, but I can at least try to answer some of those questions for you, or potentially steer you in the right direction. You may also notice my smoke detector is no longer beeping as it was yesterday. Got the battery fixed out after the live stream, so there you go. I serve Christ. Does or would that affect me becoming a Freemason? No, not based on anything I've ever seen. Like I said, I've been a Freemason since 2007. I know many Christians of various denominations, both Protestant and Catholic. I don't know all the different denominations. I can't say, but at least I've even known reverends and priests who have been Freemasons. So they see no challenge between being a Freemason and following or serving Christ. Freemasonry, right? You have to believe in a supreme being. So that will include and not be limited to Masons who are Muslim, Jewish, who are Christian, and various denominations in all those categories, as well as, for example, Hindu. You may have First Nations brothers. But the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is it does not it does not interfere with your religious, spiritual, moral, or even your civic responsibilities. And that's something I love about it. So, no, it should not and would not affect you becoming a Freemason. Right? And if anything, it makes it easier because we already know you pass at least the first one of the three requirements is that you believe in a supreme being. The other two being that you're a man and that you are over whatever the age limit is in the jurisdiction. So I don't know what it is in Missouri. In Ontario, you need to be at least 21 years of age to be a Mason. In Michigan, right across the river, you need to be at least 18 years of age. So the age it's usually between 18 and 21 to join. Tunnels beneath Poland, archaeologists found fascinating. That would be fascinating. I used to love archaeology. I'm not as into it as I used to be, but I keep trying. So, Paul, I hope that answered that question. If you have any others, let me know before I start going on to my topic. But I think that's a good question. I do think, look, a lot of people do have, I don't know what the right word is, fears, concerns, that Freemasonry may interfere with their personal lives or their religious lives or their family lives. And I mean, it's like anything else, it's a commitment, so it can. Like, I don't want to pretend that but it's what interferes is the time, right? If you're spending a lot of time at lodge, that's less time to spend with family, less time to spend in other activities. But I think it's worth it if you put the time in. Harry, hello, Paul. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and have been a master for a lot of years. Before you join, take your time. Good advice. Taking your time is always good advice. I looked up Lynn, very small town. I wonder if there's a Masonic Lodge there or not. Smaller towns, just idly curious. What I'd say is, one thing I always try to remind people of at the start, Lynn Creek Masonic Lodge, Camdenton, Missouri. Okay. One thing I always try to remind people of is, and this is advice for Paul, this is advice for anybody really looking at joining. At the start, the tendency is people can sometimes get really deep into research and they'll buy all these books on Freemasonry. There's some good ones out there, and they'll look at all these documentaries. Some can be legit, some can be not legit, but they get all stuck on like learning the history of the order. When you're joining, the most important thing, the only thing that matters at the start, the one thing that matters is how well do you think you'll get along with the other brothers in the lodge. That's really it. So take your time, get to meet them, get to know them. If you enjoy spending time with them, you will enjoy your Masonic experience. If you don't enjoy spending time with them, maybe you need to look at potentially attending a different lodge or joining a different lodge, right? It's about that enjoyment. That's what matters, much more so than anything else. So that's my opinion on that. For whatever it's worth, everybody just joining us, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it. More people liking and subscribing, the more people will find this stream, as did Paul. All right, while we wait for potentially Paul to answer a few more questions, let's talk a little bit about Freemasonry and people's health. So I've already talked a fair bit, and I don't want to kind of go over it again too much about the benefits that Freemasonry has as it relates to an individual's health. And there's a lot of them. Primarily, what this comes to is being able to avoid the negative effects associated with isolations. If you're a Freemason, you have a group of people that potentially you are seeing regularly, at least once a month, but they can be as many as 4 times a month, 5 times a month, 5 times a week, depending how active you are. And there's been all sorts of evidence that links increased socialization to both increased physical health as well as increased mental health. It helps reduce some of the symptoms surrounding things like dementia, as well as giving you that sense of purpose that can help, um, help your focus on recovery, things like that. There was here. I'll give you before I go on to this other side. I'll give you the Medium article I wrote about it, or actually, maybe I could do it through. Let's see what we got here. I had the stats up. Freemasonry, for example, the average Freemason lived 10 years longer than non-Freemasons when looking at life expectancy in Texas, thereabouts. That came from a good friend, Zach, who compiled these topics. There is all sorts of evidence that, for example, I'm not saying you should do any of these things, but you can smoke, you can drink, you can um, engage in risky activities. There's all sorts of things you can do. It will not be as risky or as dangerous as potentially being isolated and being alone. Harry Paul carries son living in Windsor. He looking north, you can see Detroit across the river. I can see Detroit across the river. Let me just pull this up. I wanted to pull this up before. Come on, taking a second to load to Lynn. I've got Lynn, Missouri on my mind. Should have had this loaded up quicker. Here it is. All right. So the benefits of social connections and Freemasonry. Many types of scientific evidence show that involvement in social relationships benefits health. The most striking evidence comes from prospective studies of mortality across industrialized nations. These studies consistently show that individuals with the lowest level of involvement in social relationships are more likely to die than those with greater involvement. For example, Berkman and Syme for 79 showed that the risk of death among men and women with the fewest social ties was more than twice as high as the risk for adults with the most social ties. This finding held even when socioeconomic status, health behaviors, and other variables that might influence mortality were taken into account. So, for example, if you're smoking, if you're drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, all of those things pose health risks. But if you have high number of social connections, those things are going to be less fatal to you. Social ties also reduce mortality risk among adults with documented medical conditions. For instance, among adults with coronary artery disease, the socially isolated had a risk of subsequent cardiac death 2.4 times greater than the more socially connected peers. You have a heart attack, you end up in the hospital, you don't get any visitors, you don't have anybody checking in on you. You're 2.5 times more likely to die than those who had people looking in on you and checking in on you. Brad Smith, he was Felix Culpa Architecture, a great dude. The other benefits we talked about before, my dad's mentioned this before, right? If you're, for example, concerned that you're older, you're concerned you may have dementia or getting dementia, one thing that you can ask is ask for your neighbors to check in on you, ask for your social connections to check in on you and keep track of you and see how you're doing. If you don't have those things, you can always look at it through Masonic Lodge. Ask your brothers to check in on you and pay attention to you. There are different charities, Masonic charities that, for example, will help people by offering them rides to cancer treatment, to medical treatment. I mean, basically, there's lots of different ways to look at this, but I think from a health perspective, what Freemasonry offers, what Freemasonry provides, at its core are social connections and social capital, which can induce or improve a person's health and protect a person's health. Interestingly, they just came out with a movie. I'm going to see it tomorrow, actually, in Alma, Michigan, called Join or Die, which is based on the Robert Putnam book. And the title comes from the idea that as fewer and fewer people join social groups and make these social connections, the more likely they are to die at an earlier age or suffer significant health risks at an earlier age. So that is from Join or Die. So that is kind of the benefits that Freemasonry has as it relates to people's health. But then there's the other side of it, and that's what I'm talking about here. So I'm hoping if you're just joining us, please hit that like, subscribe button, answer a poll question. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of an applicant during the application process? And I would add to that throughout a Masonic career. I've always viewed, and I still view at its core, Freemasonry as, or at least a Masonic. So, I view Freemasonry as the league and the Masonic Lodge as a sports team, ultimately. When you join a Masonic Lodge, you are joining a team. You could consider it in line with a sports team. You could consider it in line with another type of unit that has to work as a team. So, for example, the military, in a way, if you want to consider it that way, a military team, like the Marines, whatever it is, you are joining a team. And part of that joining is what can you contribute, right? I think, and I've always believed this, the point of being alive, the point of joining anything, the point of doing anything is to contribute. Yes, to Dad's answer, yes, all the health risks you mentioned due to isolation did increase during the pandemic. Again, though, I think many cases Freemasons and Masonic lodges were at the forefront of trying to combat that as best you could. It's one of those situations where there's no good answer, right? Yes, isolation is bad, but so is getting COVID because you were exposed to the virus. So governments had to kind of decide how they wanted to proceed with it and what they considered the bigger risk. But, Freemasonry was at the forefront in certain areas, such as virtual meetings. Many lodges did things like create phone trees where members would call other members to see how they're doing. as soon as we were able to meet, we did, but trying to do so with masks and things like that. So it was tough to figure out what the answers were, right? And I don't, but like everything, there's trade-offs. And you have to figure out what the best trade-offs are. Going back to the sports team analogy or the unit analogy, it's about, you should be thinking not just about, and this is one of my biggest problems with Freemasonry. The question that an applicant should be asking is not what can I take from or get out of Freemasonry. It should be what can I contribute? How can I contribute to Freemasonry? And more specifically, how can I contribute to my lodge to make this lodge a success through whatever talents I may have, right? And so your ability to contribute is going to be based on a lot of different things. It's going to be based first on your skill set that you have, whatever the skills are. If you, for example, have skill set in engineering or in let's say website design, maybe you can help design the website or social media. If you have skill set in engineering or building, maybe you can help do repairs around the temple. If you have skills in administration, maybe you need to help the secretary. So it's going to be based on the skill set that you have. It's also going to be based on the your personality. If you're an asshole, whatever you can contribute, it's going to be limited because no one's going to want to put up with you because you're an asshole, right? And so it's going to be based on your skill set. It's going to be based on your personality. It's going to be based on your time. If you're always traveling for work and you can never make it to lodge, you can still contribute. You can still find ways to contribute, but it's not going to be in person. You may have to, in those cases, rely more on things like, maybe offering to order the food for one meeting. You can do it from your phone. You don't need to be there to help out the junior warden, or making sure that you are donating extra money to the lodge's benevolence fund or whatever it is, right? So it's based on that. But then it's also going to be based, at least partially, on your physical health. Your physical health is going to be it's going to be an important part of it, because if you're joining a lodge, but you are not taking care of yourself physically, or whatever it is, you're not the best physical health, is that going to impact how much you can contribute to the team to make that team a success? And obviously, everything that I'm saying is relative, right? So for example, I'm missing my legs. I have comments. I have met, physical conditions, but I also try as much as I can to keep myself in as good shape as I can. And part of that is so I know that I can be there if needed to support my brothers. That doesn't mean I'm going to grow legs tomorrow or anything like that. And that I will always have certain challenges, but those things still matter. Like I looked at, and I'm not saying, I understand it's a different kind of thing, right? I'm not pretending it's not. But if you look at, for example, the Marines' physical fitness requirements, U.S. Marines, I'm just going to share the screen for 1 second. And I'm not saying that this has to be for everybody. I'm going to give this a second for it to show up. To even begin recruit training, aspiring Marines must pass the initial strength test. It is recommended that recruits report to training with scores well above the minimum standards. The IST consists of the following tests: pull-ups, push-ups, male 3 pull-ups or 34 push-ups, 2-minute time limit. Female 1 pull-up or 15 push-ups. Run, male 1.5 mile run in 13 minutes 30 seconds. Plank, 40-second plank, 1.03 minimum. Then you have the combat fitness test. Then if you go to NFL, I'm going to just one. again, going back to this idea of a team. Oops, did I share that screen? I don't know if I think I might have stopped sharing it. Let me share. Sorry, let me share this screen here. Fitness components for American football. Or actually, where was the, I'm going to go back for a second. I'm going to go to, here it is. 6 physical skill tests: 40-yard dash, vertical jump, bench press, broad jump, 3-cone drill, and 20-yard shuffle. So again, I'm not suggesting that, an applicant before he joins a lodge has to, we put out a bunch of, make him do as many push-ups as he can, as many sit-ups as he can. But what I am saying is, if you're joining a team, then part of that is needing to know that you can contribute to that team. And your ability to contribute to that team, again, part of that is going to be based on your physical health and your physical well-being. Now, and that's going to be true throughout your Masonic career. So, for example, if you've been a Mason for 50, 60 years, I certainly do not expect you to be physically healthy as you were in your 20s. But I also am not sure if you should necessarily be going into a worshipful master position, especially if your health has deteriorated to such an extent that you have trouble with things like memory, you have trouble with things like physically getting to lodge. And again, part of it is a case by case basis. So I'm not suggesting everybody of a certain age will be physically unfit. There might be many 20-year-olds who are physically unfit compared to 60-year-olds. But it's more the idea of generally keeping that in mind and having a certain expectation that a brother does his best to keep himself as healthy as he can to contribute to a lodge. And again, there may come a point where physically a brother can contribute to the lodge anymore. That doesn't mean he gets kicked out of the craft, but that does mean that he perhaps doesn't get a worshipful master position. Do you know what I mean? You have to, because I think for a lot of people in Freemasonry, there's so much more of an emphasis and this idea of like a brother joins a lodge and then it's what can the lodge do for that brother, which is understandable. It's a fraternity. We should help each other out. But I also think just as important is we should be asking, do you have the capability to contribute to this lodge and contribute to this lodge's well-being, and not just in a financial sense, right? I get they pay their dues, they pay their money. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the question like, okay, are you going to be physically capable of contributing? And I think even throughout the process, right, there's a reason why so many, like, it's not as though you join, you're healthy, and then that's all that matters. Like, sports teams, the Marines, whatever it is, they expect you to keep yourself in a relative state of health and well-being because the work is so important that it's expected that you continue with those things, right? Which I think is fair too. I think it makes a lot of sense for Masonic lodges and Masonic groups to pay attention to the health and well-being of their membership. And if their health and if their membership is not healthy, maybe do some things to try to change that. Maybe is it possible to request physicals, things like that? Would you say to a member, we want to know, even before, let's say, they become a worshipful master, like maybe not an applicant needs to be healthy, but is it worth, before somebody goes into the master's chair, requesting a physical? A lot of lodges now are requesting things like credit checks, financial well-being, criminal record checks. Is it worth potentially asking for some type of physical health or physical check? to see if they'll be able to physically show up, contribute to the lodge, things like that, and what they'll be able to contribute. I think it's an interesting question. I think sometimes we forget to consider the health. And again, that's not to say as health deteriorates, you kick people out of a lodge. I don't believe in that. I believe once you're a Mason, then you should not be kicked out. But I think that should go into trying to determine things like officer positions, officer chairs, Grand Lodge appointments, things of that nature. Because I have seen, and I don't know if other people have seen this or not. If you have, you can put it in the chat. I have been to lodges and attended lodges where I've seen worshipful masters and even some higher ups who are just not physically capable of doing the job due to age, due to other factors. They're forgetting things. They struggle even to get to their chair, to get to the master's chair. They're not able to, they just don't look capable of administering a lodge. And I think in those cases, it's unfortunate, that they were put in that position by the lodge. And also, I think they have some responsibility to think about those things before they join. Skill set is an asset. You suggest A, brother will say no, B is better. Another brother will say no, C is better. So you have a choice of 3. Well, so skill sets, yeah, every skill set is an asset if it's applied in the correct position. I think one of the problems we're facing when it comes to skill sets is every Masonic lodge, well, not every, but so many Masonic lodges are so bereft of membership that you can't really specialize your skill sets. So, like, for example, you may have a member who is really crummy when it comes to memory work and really bad at that, doesn't have that skill set, can't do memory work, can't speak in front of people. Let's say he doesn't have those skills, but he's really talented at bookkeeping and administration, right? The logical place for him to go would be to the treasurer's position or to help out the treasurer. But if the lodge has so few members that they need him to step into an officer position and need him to be worshipful master, well, then his skill set in worshipful master is not going to be as well applied as it could be at the treasurer position. There may be somebody else who, has great skills to be worshipful master, doesn't have other skill sets, but maybe asked to do something to help out, right? So I think hopefully as membership numbers increase, you're more likely to see specialized skills once again, and right, as opposed to everybody needing to do everything because there's so few brothers, if that makes any sense. Cameron, I personally think that you have brought in much to Freemasonry. Well, I try my best. I appreciate you saying that. And again, and I do try. I'm not saying I'm great at it by any means. I'm certainly not. But I do try to keep myself relatively healthy because it allows me to bring more to Freemasonry. If I'm always tired, if I'm not taking care of myself physically, am I going to have the capacity to contribute as much to Freemasonry as I would otherwise? Again, everything is relative, though. I'm certainly not suggesting I'm like the healthiest person or the healthiest Freemason or any combination therein, right? But it's something I think about. And I think you could argue, again, this is dependent on things like age and a lot of factors, but there's an argument to be made that the person who is caring for themselves, trying to stay healthy, showing that commitment to themselves, they are also to a certain extent showing a commitment to their Masonic duties and Masonic responsibilities, because it's showing that they are trying to make sure they'll be there for I'm trying to think of how to put it. You're showing that you want to be part of this, you want to be fit and healthy enough that you're going to be around for a long time and have a lot to contribute. Because physical health also impacts your mental health, right? The more physically healthy you are, the more mentally healthy you are. And so, yeah, I just think, we talk about a well-regulated, by such a prudent and well-regulated course of discipline. That's part of it. So it's surrender to your fullest capacities, your mental and physical capabilities, right? So that's another example in Freemasonry of saying you need to take care of yourself physically so you have the ability to exert your talents to help your fellow man. So I think personally, I'm debating this. It might be worth Freemasons when you're looking at the application process to also, along with everything else, request a physical, or to treat it like you would a sports team and request yearly physicals from certainly from officers, or something to that effect. I think it's something to consider. Our last meeting, we had a 96-year-old member came, was basically to pay his dues. The attention given to him was more than the new master, even though he didn't hear what was going on. I mean, I'm sure that he appreciated the attention that he received, though. And again, that's another example of that 96-year-old should certainly remain a member, and he should certainly be celebrated when he attends, but you're not going to necessarily make him a worshipful master. And potentially, maybe, there are two, from what I understand, there are two factors that affect people's health. 50% of it is genetics, and there's nothing you can do about that. But the other 50% is your lifestyle choices. So maybe that 96-year-old made some good lifestyle choices in his younger years that helped make sure he would make it to 96 and maybe even to 100 4 years from now. So that's my kind of thought on that. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health applicant during a process? I think yes. I think a healthy applicant demonstrates first a personal commitment to health, which means he'll be more likely to be committed to the lodge. It also demonstrates that a healthy applicant will be better able to contribute to the lodge in different ways. And it demonstrates a level of personal responsibility. Again, keeping everything else in mind, because obviously an applicant diagnosed with cancer has the health effects of that. There's nothing he can do about that, right? And so it's a balance. Everything is a balancing act in life. But generally, I would answer that question, yes. And then I also think, and I've always argued this, I think just being a member of society, you do have a certain responsibility to try to take care of your health as much as you can. Again, I'm not perfect. I eat way too much junk food. My diet is probably the worst part of my health regime. I'm the worst when it comes to junk food, but I do try to exercise regularly. I do try to pay attention to what my doctor tells me. I do go to the doctors every year for a checkup, get my blood work done, all of that stuff. So it's, I think, just an important part of being a Mason and being a citizen is to try to take care of yourself physically. And also, that helps make sure that I'm not unduly burdening the healthcare system, right? If I take care of myself physically, I'm less likely to have a heart attack or whatever it is, and then I'm less likely to need medical intervention, which means those medical interventions can be saved for others. So I hope that kind of made sense. Those are my general ideas. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what it is that you want to chat about. There's plenty of time left in this live stream. We had some great people joining us so far, but still plenty of time. So jump on, let me know. Maybe we should ask applicants to do a push-up before they join, or how many push-ups they can do. I have to go to my doctor for a form for him to fill in so I can get my driver's license. Well, do what your doctor tells you. So grab that form, fill it out. Again, it's just about being safe, right? So as my doctor tells me, you don't tell your doctor tells you. So I hope the form goes well. Cameron, my grandfather passed from cancer. All his brethren should love him. Good, good. And yeah, again, unfortunately, sometimes these mental health issues, physical health issues just happen and there's nothing you can do about them. But you don't want to make it easier, is kind of my philosophy on that. You don't want to make it easier. You want to try to keep yourself as healthy as you can. But sometimes there's nothing you can do, which is unfortunate. Today is the hashtag You Deserve Pitch January 2025. I'm going to try to take part in that tonight and pitch some of my different ideas, share some of my writings, all that good stuff. We'll see who reposts any of my things. 4 votes. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health and applicant during an application process? I'm going to change this poll. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of a brother before becoming worshipful master? Be nice to the doctor. Always be nice to your doctor, though, for heaven's sakes. Always be nice to your doctor. I suppose always be nice to everybody would be a good answer to that one as well. Should a Masonic Lodge consider the health of a brother before electing to worshipful master? One unsure, one no, 50-50. All right. No yeses as of yet. I'm going to put this on X, and I'm going to share this link as well so more people can find it. Oops. Give me 1 second. Whoops. One more. Unsure. All right. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter, by the way, on the X, on whatever platform it is you want to call it, as well as I'm on Blue Sky, and I just jumped on, interestingly enough, Red Note, which is kind of an interesting spot to be on. It's like an app that deals with it basically took over for TikTok. So my doctor knows you as your mom worked in the same office. Okay, cool. That is very cool. Time flies. Well, tell the doctor I say hi. Good. I'm glad to hear your diabetes is going well. That's another one of those things, right? Where you maybe can't control you got it, but hopefully you can at least take some steps to make sure that you manage it as best you can and listen to your doctor's advice and all that good stuff. and listen to your doctor's advice. All right, I'm going to share this. Give me one sec. Be curious to know what the if any offices are doing anything similar. Let me just check something. www health requirements in office. Companies requiring health. Oh, interestingly, so companies hiring health coaches. So it looks like, for example, there are 50 companies. So these are not even like sports teams, anything like that, hiring health coaches for their employees. This is from November of 2023. Apple, AvMed, Awaken, Bend Health, Blue Cross. So some of these are health companies. Core Wellness, LME, Elevates Health, The Exercise Coach, Fitbit, Gallagher. Let me just see. In Fortune 500 companies, health and well-being typically refers to comprehensive programs designed to promote the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of employees, often including features like health screenings, fitness initiatives, stress management programs, and mental health support, work-life balance policies, and employee assistance programs, aimed to improve employee productivity, and moral, and retention. So, would it make sense for Masonic Lodges to start doing some of these same things? For example, would it make sense for in Fortune 500? Let me just share the screen for just 1 second. So obviously, Fortune 5 companies have money and funds that other groups don't. But in Fortune 500 companies, health and well-being typically refers to comprehensive programs designed to promote the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of employees. So let's say you switch employees to members, often including features like health screenings, fitness initiatives, stress management programs, mental health support, like work-life balance, priorities, and employee assistance programs. So imagine if you switch that sentence a little bit and you said, in Masonic Lodges, health and well-being typically refers to comprehensive programs designed to promote the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of members, often including features like health screenings, fitness initiatives, stress management programs, mental health support, work-life balance policies, and employee assistance programs. Might make Masonic Lodges a more attractive option in some ways. But again, Fortune 500 companies have resources that, for better or worse, I think Masonic Lodges just don't. But I think there's a very valid premise in that. Welcome. If you're just joining us, by the way, please hit that like and subscribe button. We are chatting about Freemasonry and health, meant in this case, specifically physical health, and potentially steps that Freemasons can take to support their health, as well as whether health should be a factor when assessing things like electing of worshipful masters, senior wardens, junior wardens, officers, candidates, etc., etc. And we were talking about Fortune 500 companies. Many of them have taken steps to actually create health and wellness programs for their employees, including, physical health screenings every year. Imagine if a Masonic Lodge were to do the same thing, what that might mean. But we are also free to kind of chat about anything else you want to talk about. So jump on the chat, say hello, and let me know, what do you want to talk about? You can answer our poll questions, all that good stuff. It is widespread, not just diabetes, but a lot of different types of physical health impediments and ailments are widespread, unfortunately. If I recall correctly, the majority of my audience today will be on here around 4 o'clock, so we'll see when some people start to join us. In the meantime, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm curious. It'd be interesting to see, because I don't know off the top of my head, what the actual connections are between, or I'll just say this. I'm curious if anyone done any studies specifically on like on the health of Freemasons and just Freemasonry in general. Again, beyond what I saw in terms of life expectancy, which is life expectancy rises if you're a Freemason. So by 10 years in Texas and in America, which seems like a pretty impressive. If somebody asks, what does Freemasonry provide? Provides you an extra 10 years of life if you're in Texas. So that's something. I'm just checking something here quickly. Harry, hereditary, my family, mother, Arlene. I think, yeah, well, I was saying before, when it comes to health, I think it's like 50%, something to that effect. 50% or more is 50% is hereditary, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's just your genetics, and 50% of it is actually lifestyle choices, and that you can control. So I think you do have a certain level of control, hopefully, that you can apply to your health as much as possible. Here it is, 60. So this is from the health and fitness programs of the top 10 Fortune 500 companies. I'm going to read this here. This is from Forbes. Let's give it a second for it to pop up. I know it can sometimes take a couple minutes. In the ever-evolving landscape of corporate wellness, the health and fitness programs offered by Fortune 500 companies have become a beacon of inspiration. Building upon our previous article that highlighted the top 10 companies' health fitness revolution, led by its founder. On my fridge, I have an AIR kit. It stands for emergency. Yeah, those things are good to have. These industry giants not only dominate the business world, but also set an example for corporations and employers everywhere, demonstrating the importance of motivating and encouraging employees to prioritize their health and fitness. By fostering a healthier workforce, businesses can enhance productivity, collaboration, and overall success. Let's see what some of these programs are, though. Now, let's explore the programs that can empower individuals alike to unlock their full potential in the realm of health and fitness. Here are some of the benefits of robust workplace wellness programs. Healthy and more productive working employees, lower stress levels, lower turnover, high employee retention rates, fewer sick days, lower insurance premiums, protection against the company's greatest asset, the employee, higher self-esteem and greater team building mentally, increased energy and vitality in the workplace, optimistic, positive attitude, a greater eagerness to succeed and lead, along with the energy to do so. Improvement in family life brings improvement into the workplace, greater community synergy, greater company synergy. Walmart. Walmart is continually working to provide the 1.1 million Walmart associates and family members covered by Walmart healthcare plans with access to affordable, comprehensive medical coverage, as well as tools, resources, and innovative new benefits for $7. For $7 to $10, a paycheck employee can use the Walmart Fitness Center, which has a track, exercise equipment, a swimming pool, classes, etc. Again, wouldn't it be interesting if Masonic buildings and temples had fitness centers? I think that might be kind of cool. Amazon launched the Working Well in 2021, comprehensive program aiming to improve employee health and reduce the risk of injury. Steve Jobs to pass on his love of meditation to others in the workplace, allowing employees of the tech giant to take 30 minutes each day to meditate at work, providing classes on meditation and yoga on site, and offering the use of a meditation room. So that might be, again, something interesting. Would it be possible to have meditation in a Masonic Lodge, or maybe every Masonic Lodge sets aside a couple hours or a couple minutes at the start or end of each meeting to try meditation and see how that works? I think that might be kind of worth exploring. Glad she's doing good, Courtney. Welcome if you're just joining us. You can answer a poll question, which makes sense to have as well. That's a good, safe thing to have. And that might be something that's worth having at Masonic temples. If you've got it on your fridge, many Masonic lodges have fridges. Might be worth having on some other ones. Just going to give it a bit of time, see who else joins us. I think we are at the point now where this is kind of the ask us anything portion. So let's wait to see who jumps on the chat, says hello. Sometimes yesterday, I said it took a couple hours before we started to get a good turnout, but then we did get a really good turnout. So it goes up and down. Let's give it time, see who joins us. But I'm glad everybody's doing well. So I'm just going to wait and see if anybody else jumps on the chat. Like I said, yesterday it took a couple hours, so we'll give it a bit of time. I may jump in. Yeah, no, I agree. Yesterday was very good. Might be worth actually sharing this in a few other spots. Give me 1 second. There is some fun things happening today on X. There's something called You Deserve PIT, You Deserve Pitch 2025, where people are sharing their pitches for their stories. Some really good ones too. These pitches are way better than what I've done. Looks like what you guys share is not just the pitch itself, but actually the something on Crello. So, oof, I was not prepared for this one at all. A good idea of people having error kits, but people will snoop. People will, unfortunately. I don't know if there's maybe a place that they could be kept that people like only maybe the secretary or the secretary exclusively has access to them, so that other people can't snoop. Might be worth looking at. I'm not sure, but it seems like it'd be worth checking out. Oh, speaking of Wrestling United, March 27th, they are having their first ever Wrestling United champion. So once again, that wrestling thing that I do, I'm going to share that. That might be the same thing as where, for example, we talk about lodges having the air kits. Maybe secretary should also have part of that, a list of emergency contacts. Again, so if anybody has a heart attack, knock on wood, something terrible happens during a lodge meeting, they are able to potentially still go ahead and meet. They know after they go to the hospital, okay, who do we call? We have the emergency contact. I think all that type of stuff, right? I think lodges are not, in my opinion, thinking about this stuff as much as they should. Speaking again only for myself, not speaking as connected to anybody else. In Freemasonry, I think that stuff is incredibly valid and valuable. Do I think AI has become a great thing in terms of making the world a better place? So I've talked about Freemasonry and artificial intelligence. I mean, ultimately, I think it will make the world a better place. I think right now it hasn't really made the world a better place or a worse place. It just kind of is making the world a place. Like I think right now it's primarily just a tool. Like it's not necessarily making it good or bad. I think there's a lot of dangers to it, but overall, I think it will be a good thing. I think, look, anytime technology advances, there's positives and negatives to it, but I think the positives tend to, over time, win out over the negatives. Having said that, all it takes is one really, really, really bad thing to change everything, right? So nuclear weapons is a good example. That nuclear technology has been an incredibly valuable and valid tool for energy, for clean energy that does not increased greenhouse gases, things of that nature, nuclear submarines. But, one nuclear war and all that stuff is going to be kind of pointless. So, or feel pointless at that moment. So, I don't know. Overall, though, here's what I'd say. It's too soon to tell, but I'm choosing to be optimistic. Because to me, why choose pessimism? I just don't see how it helps. In my experience, it's almost always better to be optimistic. I've seen very little evidence that pessimism actually is beneficial. But a lodge will have a brother who knows a brother who goes into distress. Hopefully. I mean, the one exception would obviously be if it's a brand new visitor. It may be worth asking visitors to supply, if they can, a emergency contact information. They don't have to, obviously, but maybe asking them to, just in case. And then also, like, how many people, you may know them, but how many people actually know, like, contact information anymore? Like, honestly, my emergency contact, I don't know his phone number because he's just saved on my phone. It's Jason. So, like, if you you might know him, but do you have his phone number? Do you have his contact's phone number? A lot of people might have his phone number, but they won't have his wife's phone number, for example, if he has a cell phone. So probably you'd be okay. 99% of the time you'd be okay, but that 1% of the time where you don't have an emergency contact, it might become an issue. So taking a couple minutes to have people write that stuff out in advance and let people know what's going on, I don't know, might not hurt anything to give it a shot and try it out. Yes, I did. So there you go. You can't hear the beeping anymore. It's driving me crazy yesterday. My neighbor was kind enough to do that for me. So thank you so much to him for doing that. Because I, with my wheelchair, could not reach. I think I talked about this, what I'm talking about now, in a Medium article. Let me see if I can find it. And Sony mentioned this on the chat. Let's see. It was 4 qualifications every senior Masonic officer should have. Where are you? Just trying to find this link. All right. 4 qualifications every senior Masonic officer should have. This doesn't mean that every senior officer should have all 4. It just means that of your, let's say, worshipful master, senior warden, junior warden, and treasurer secretary, these qualifications should be represented amongst each of those officers. So smart serve or equivalent certification for the safe serving of alcoholic beverages, working together, the code and the AODA, 5-part learning series for public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. So basically, training on how to make sure your buildings are accessible for those with disabilities, basic first aid training qualifications. You never know when an emergency medical situation will arise or for whom. that many lodge members' membership are getting older. As such, Masonic membership is perhaps most at risk for medical emergencies. Basic first aid can help save lives and, at a minimum, put members' minds at ease during meetings. It may be worth hiring first aid and or paramedic services to attend a Masonic event, especially if a member of the public will be in attendance. A secured building, including safety certification and occupier safety requirements. I'm going to share this here. There we go. So one of those links, right, when you're talking about Masonic Health is, again, does your lodge have anybody who knows first aid? Does your lodge have anybody who, does your lodge know about the safety and security of the building? But does your lodge have anybody who knows about first aid? I think it's worth keeping those things in mind and trying to see if those qualifications can be shared amongst the membership. Both physical first aid, but also mental health first aid is a really big deal that I think sometimes gets overlooked. How do you step in if somebody's having some type of mental health crisis? Maybe you have a lodge member who has dementia and he forgets or he starts to panic. How do you make sure that that brother has received the appropriate appropriate interventions to deal with that type of medical challenge? Or maybe a homeless person wanders into your lodge meeting off the street, which can happen. Again, maybe they have some type of mental health issue. How do you deal with that? How do you approach that? Also, on a slightly more personal note, on a slightly more, perhaps it will be considered a controversial note. I've been talking a lot about this, so I'm just going to throw this out. I mentioned this before. I've said Freemasons and people, but Freemasons have a responsibility to care for their health. That means exercising. That means eating well. That et cetera, et cetera. That also means, in my opinion, getting vaccinated. I think every Mason has a responsibility to get vaccinated, especially what we saw with COVID. I think every Mason had a responsibility to get the COVID vaccine. I know that's a controversial take. So do with that what you will. But if you're a Freemason, I think that you have that responsibility. There are exceptions. People are allergic to the vaccines. I know some people can't take them. But every Mason who can, I wrote an article and I stand by this. I said Freemasons, I said getting vaccinated is the Masonic thing to do, and I stand by that. Cameron, would you be willing to do an emotional connections in society? Sure, we could talk about that. I've never really tackled the emotional connection of society. I've talked about the way, how do I put this? The way emotional connections, the way social connections can improve a person's emotional well-being. How would you define, Courtney, if you can define emotional connections? What would you say separates, say, an emotional connection from a from other types of connections, social, work, whatever it might be? And because certainly even within Freemasonry, right, there's very different types of emotional connections. There's the connections you might have with your really good friends, which are which are going to be different than, say, the connections you have with like your good friends in lodge, like Igor and me. I've known him for a long time. I've been to so many different meetings with him versus somebody who I don't see very often, who comes out not that regularly. Harry Year. I don't know what year means, but yes, it is just the start of the year. So Courtney Duffy, Alexander the Great was likely buried alive. Just curious. I don't know. He was poisoned, right? If I recall correctly. I know he died in 33 BC. I think when he was 33 years old, if I recall correctly. So, and an interesting little side note. Snow looks like it stopped out here, by the way, if anybody was curious about the weather in Windsor. It's been a crummy. I went through, yeah, I'm a big believer in that. I wish we did more of that, to be honest. In Masonic lodges, I don't think we do near enough of those type of things. I know that we tried to organize one in Windsor a few years ago. It didn't work for whatever reason, but I think it's worth, maybe it's worth trying again, or maybe we could do a virtual I don't know what to call it, a virtual first aid where maybe we get somebody from Red Cross, whatever it might be, to go on and talk to us about virtual first aid, or show us virtually the steps to take if somebody's having a medical emergency in our lodge. Because again, at least we can write down like what to do. I know obviously call 911 is going to be pretty up there near the top, but there might be other things as well. I would define my Corey M, Windsor, California. Welcome, Corey. No, Windsor, Ontario. Or do you say Windsor CA as Windsor, Canada? In which case, Corey M, yes, Windsor, Canada. Welcome, by the way, Corey. I hope you're doing well. If you could hit that like and subscribe button. We are here chatting about Freemasonry, but let me know if there's anything else you want to talk about. It's one of those things where this is our chance to talk about anything we want as it relates to Freemasonry. And if you're not a Freemason, maybe you have questions about it. The instructor said to me, Harry, stop now. And yeah, you told me that. You went too slow with your first aid. Staying alive is the beat I was told to do. Corey M, copy that. Also, Corey, if you can let me know how you came across our stream. Did it show up on your YouTube feed? Did you search for us? Do you follow us on social media? All that good stuff would be great to know. But Corey, let me know if there's anything you want to chat about as it relates to Freemasonry. And thank you for joining us. You showed up on my feed, already subscribed. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for already being subscribed. Do you have any questions or anything you want to talk about as it relates to Freemasonry as we just hang out? We were talking about Freemasonry and health, both the ways in which Freemasonry can help protect and preserve people's health, its members and the families, as well as whether or not Freemasons have a responsibility to maintain their mental health for the sake of the lodge, and whether it's okay for Masonic lodges to expect their membership to maintain their physical health. Let me know in the chat what you're thinking, what your thoughts are there, or like we were saying, any questions you have about Freemasonry, by all means, let me know. Because like I said, the most fun part of this, I think, is getting to chance to meet with new people virtually who maybe sometimes aren't Freemasons but have questions about Freemasonry. I've been a Freemason since 2007. I don't pretend to know everything about Freemasonry. I certainly don't, but at least I can try to answer some of your questions, or send you in the right directions potentially. Pet psychology, we can learn so much from the animals by them helping us to cope mentally ourselves. Yeah, well, I mean, there's all sorts of evidence. It's really interesting. Like, um, there's all sorts of really interesting evidence about the benefits pets have on people's health and well-being. Certainly, there's been a lot of times, um, nursing homes will, for example, have nursing home pets. They'll have cats, they'll have dogs visit, things like that. Same thing with kids in hospital getting treatment. Will get, visits from therapy dogs. So I think, yeah, there's no doubt at all, in my opinion, that pets are a major source um, of mental health and in some ways physical health, reduce blood pressure, reduce stress. The instructor said I was not pushing hard enough on the chest. The person who you saved is not worried about broken ribs. Yes, that is very, very true. I agree with that completely. And that's what I've heard as well. So, yeah, I guess a general piece of advice, although I'm not an expert, so I had to give that caveat. If you got to deliver, um, if you have to deliver CPR, I don't think broken ribs are not the biggest concern. I broke my ribs. It's fine. They hurt for a little while, then you get over it. I'd rather have broken ribs and be alive than not have broken ribs and be dead. So let that be a lesson from my pops. Don't be nervous about breaking those ribs. And if you are a Mason, maybe talk to your lodge. See if you can't convince them to take part in some first aid training. I don't know if it even costs that much. And there's stuff you can do online as well, which is worth checking out. So, different types of online training that you can do. If you're just joining us, please, though, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the chat, what do you want to talk about? I really enjoyed chatting about Freemasonry and people's health and things that Freemasons can do to maybe protect people's health. Cameron, what's the most important thing to you on a global scale? Whew. On a global scale. I try not to think on a global scale just because it's so big, it's overwhelming, and there's so much that you have to kind of try to figure out. So I don't know if God, that's the global scale is so big. I mean, things like global famine, war, like, so there's two sides to it. What am I most concerned about globally would probably be global warming. But what do I think most about when I think about the globe? It's Freemasonry, right? I think about lodges and Freemasons in different parts of the world, where they're located, how they're doing. Places on the globe where Freemasonry is doing very well versus places in the globe where Freemasonry is struggling. Why it does well versus why it struggles. What we can learn from both sides of it. But I think the danger of the global scale is, again, it becomes incredibly overwhelming, right? And it would just be so hard to have to figure out how to deal with all the global problems that exist in the world. I mean, what's also most important to me, what's most concerning to me, is going to be not so much artificial intelligence, but just the way lies and misinformation, I know people don't like that term, but the way that stuff can spread so easily through podcasts and through social media. I mean, somebody once had the quote. Let me see if I can find it now. It's a quote. This was in Rome. This was like 2,000 years ago. But or maybe no. So maybe it was actually Winston Churchill who said it. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its brain on. I guess you could change that for this. A lie gets halfway around the globe before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. But there was a quote about lies and wings. Gonna see if I can find it. Or was it rumor that was the quote? Here it is. Lies have wings while the truth has to walk. So I think globally, it's so much easier for lies to spread due to technology. So that is probably my biggest, what I think is most important is trying to get a handle on that and not allowing kind of the worst parts of us to spread so easily and so well. Cultural diffusion, how would you might consider its effect on Freemasonry as a whole or just common? You have to define cultural diffusion. I think certainly a Masonic Lodge will naturally take on the culture of, will actually take on the culture of the community in which it's located. And then as you have people traveling, they then have the opportunity to, if you have a Mason from Texas traveling to Ontario, he will bring some of that Texas culture with him and bring that to the lodge. And there's also Masonic culture, right? Which again, Masonic culture can diffuse into the broader community as well as the other way around. So I think that is one of those things where I didn't know a little bit more culture diffusion, but I think it's interesting the extent to which Freemasonry can and does affect the cultures in which it's located. Welcome, by the way, if you're just joining us, please hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what it is you want to chat about. We're here to chat about Freemasonry. We started off this stream talking about Freemasonry and people's health and whether or not Freemasons have a responsibility to their health and well-being and to expect their membership to remain healthy as much as possible. Then we switched over and now we're kind of just talking about anything. So please jump on the stream, jump on the chat, say hello, and let me know what it is you want to talk about. And as always, hit that like and subscribe button. We've had a bunch of people jump on the stream from different parts of the world, so it's much appreciated. Just going to give it a bit of time, see if anyone else jumps in on the chat, wants to say hello while we continue to going to go back onto good old X. Your granddad name was a member of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, and he was a volunteer ambulance driver for Halt Whistle. Yes, he was. So speaking of people's health, as well as helping out the community and caring for other people's health, I think the universe might end at some point due to all that's going on. The universe will end at some point due to entropy. I mean, all that's going on Earth is pretty irrelevant to the universe. I don't think the universe cares what's one or the other. The universe is going to end. So time until the end of cosmology is approximately 150 billion years from now. So we got a bit of time, 150 billion years. So I guess I don't have to worry about it. Much before that, though, the sun is going to expand and take over the whole Earth. So it's going to end that way in, I think, a few million years. So hopefully before then, we can maybe get to some other planets. Even getting to Mars, though, wouldn't be good enough. We'd have to get outside the solar system. But we got a bit of time. The Earth is going to end when the sun expands. Between 1 billion and 7.59 billion years. So the sun will likely engulf Earth in about 7.59 billion years from now. So if anybody has any scheduled plans or has set a date 7.59 billion years in the future, I might suggest that you change that because you might have a bad day. So maybe set something a little bit sooner. But I guess we won't really die at that point. The Earth won't die. It'll just become part of the sun, and all its materials become part of the sun. Yeah, I've heard that quote a few times. I think I mentioned that earlier. Lies that travel halfway around the world. I think in the case of 2025, the internet helps with those lies traveling halfway around the world quite well. How would you define Freemasonry core values? To be one is to ask one. So to be one, ask one, that's not a core value of Freemasonry. That's kind of a, I don't know what the right word would be. I guess I describe it as a marketing slogan, which is okay. I think I would define Freemasonry as I would define Freemasonry in a super simple term. A Freemasonry is a fraternity. That's how I would define it. The core values of Freemasonry, there's a million different ways that you could core values. I would say the core value of Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be shaped and made better through the practice of temperance, prudence, through the practice of brotherly love, relief, and truth. So I'd say the core value of Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made a better place through the practice of brotherly love, relief, and truth. And being a Freemason gives you the opportunity to practice those virtues and thereby try to or fight to make the world a better place. So that's what I'd say the core value of Freemasonry is. Whether or not we succeed is very much up for debate. Whether or not we can succeed is very much up for debate. I've talked about that in a lot of my streams, but that's kind of for another day as well, I think. So actually, I like that as a quote. One more time, I'm going to say that because I think that works well. The core value of Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made a better place through the practice of the virtues of through the practice of brotherly love, relief, and truth. I'm going to write that down here. The core value of Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made better through the practice of brotherly love and truth. Let me know what you think of that. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that a poll question. Let's see what people think of that. Shoot, it's too long of a question. Let me know if agree, disagree in the comments. Core value of Freemasonry. Oop. All right. Black holes are in the middle of it. We are not in the middle of a black hole. There's a black hole in the middle of our galaxy, though. There's a pretty big black hole in the middle of our galaxy, to what I understand. So there's that, but we are not in the middle of one ourselves, no. Let's see. Whoops. Just trying to add something here to that. So we are not in the middle of a black hole. There is a black hole in the middle of our galaxy, though. Let me just double check that. I'll get you the name of it in case you're curious. Center. You know, what's interesting is, ultimately what a black hole is, and I've talked to scientists about this, a black hole is, so they say that Einstein turned gravity into geometry. He turned the universe into geometry. And so black holes is just the ultimate expression of the geometric principle of the curvature of space, to my understanding. So the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy is called Sagittarius A. It is a supermassive black hole with a mass of about 4 million suns. Let's see if I can actually get some images of it. But I don't think we're in one. I think if we were in one, it would be, we notice pretty quickly. Let's see. There is some pictures of some black holes for you guys to see. Do you agree with my core value of Freemasonry? Yes, 67%. So 1 no, 2 yeses to the person who said no. Maybe by all means, you can let me know how you would, what your core value would be, which might be better than mine. I'll let you, or the core values. I'll let you decide. I'll let you, if you can, write down in the chat what you think it might be. And as always, if you're just joining us, hit that like and subscribe button. The more people we have liking and subscribing, the better it is for the chat. And welcome if you're just joining us. Cameron, what are the biggest differences between your lodge and the other lodges? Oh, it depends. That's a tough one because I've got 4 lodges of which I'm a member. 3 meet here in Windsor, and the 4th is out of Israel, the Grand Lodge of the State of Israel. So, and the other thing is, I mean, it's hard because there's so many other lodges, right? Like, what is the difference? Obviously, different lodges will speak different languages. They'll have different ritual. Some lodges will be bigger. Some lodges will be smaller. Every lodge has its own unique history that kind of changes. I'm trying to think of the word. So there's so many differences, right? The people ultimately are what make any lodge different or not different. So there is that as well. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned before, there are some new LA wildfires. 31,000 people must evacuate as new infernos torch fire ravaged Southern California. So unfortunately, the fires have returned. Hopefully not with the same risk. They were able to keep it to only 40 acres. All right. Those firefighters, credit where credit is due, man. Very impressed with the work that they do. Some people only look out for themselves and to hell with others. Some people, just depends. Just depends. I think it's hard to say, right? People are naturally, everybody's different, put it that way. Which is unfortunate, but it does happen. Just gonna bit of time, see who else jumps in the chat, says hello. Probably do this one a little bit. I don't think so, Dad. That's a weird thing to say. No, I don't think it is. I think, I don't know, Earth is pretty all right, Earth is pretty all right. We've got, cheese, which is delicious. We've got some nice views. In winter, we can build snow forts or whatever it is, Earth is pretty special. From a non-Mason standpoint, I think community involvement would be the most special thing at becoming a Freemason, for me at least. Yeah, I mean, and that's why a lot of people join, right? Is for that community involvement, which is a great reason to join, I think. Everybody kind of has to find their own reason, what they love most about it. Community involvement is obviously a pretty valid one, pretty valuable one. So, and I mean, I don't, it'd be too long of a podcast to go into today because I got to end this one soon to get ready for some other work. But there are no end of examples of Freemasonry and its community involvement and charitable efforts and charitable work. So, welcome. If you're just joining us, by the way, hit that like and subscribe button. We're talking about Freemasonry. We talk about all sorts of different aspects of it. Today, we're talking about Freemasonry as it relates to people's health. So jump in the chat, say hello, answer the poll question. Somebody asked me what I think the core value of Freemasonry is. This was how I described it, but there are other core values as well that other people can use to describe. So let me know what you think it might be. going to give it a bit of time to see if anybody else jumps in the chat. I'll probably finish this around 3:30 Eastern time. That will give me time to get ready to go and do the rest of the stuff I got to do today before we're back on tomorrow. So, like I said, I am traveling tomorrow, but I do want to try to keep these going regularly. So what I might do is might even do a very brief live stream from a bus. Why not? Could be kind of fun to try something different. We'll see how it goes. Cameron, what conditions to life would you say are important? Oof. I mean, do you mean just like biological life at all? Then I guess I'd say the conditions that are important are you need a planet that exists within what would be called a habitable zone that orbits around a star. That habitable zone would need to be one with water. I'd say that is another one. I'd also say just time, right? It's going to be very hard for life to evolve if the age of the universe is 30 seconds or 1 minute or 5 minutes or even a million years. You probably need a few billion years of time for universes to evolve, for planets to form, for those planets to have time to then develop water, for water to then give rise to life. So I'd say time and then space as well. Obviously, you just need the actual space to do it, right? A place, a universe. So the conditions for life, I'd say you need a universe. You then need enough time for life to evolve. You then need a location, which is in a habitable zone of a star, and then you need water. And if you have those four things, you probably have a good shot at life. But if you mean what are the conditions of life more in the sense of um, um, if you mean more in this like life in the sense of a good life, a life that you will enjoy, um, oof, that's a really interesting question. I think, well, then I think there's a hierarchy of needs, right? That kind of goes into it. So at the baseline for conditions of life, you need food, you need water, you need shelter to live, you need to be warm. But then beyond that, you need friends, you need oxygen, by the way, to live as well. Like you need your basics, right? But then beyond that, you need friends, you need a purpose, you need commitments, you need to be self-actualized. Like I think the hierarchy of needs will kind of delve into what I would say are the conditions important of life. Although, again, going back to kind of what we discussed before, I think Freemasonry does fulfill some of those conditions. Certainly, those conditions near the top: self-actualization, community. Um, I think those things are obviously going to be pretty important and pretty necessary. But again, how much do we actually know, right? Like that is one of those interesting questions where life could, for all we know, look completely different here on Earth than it does anywhere else in the universe, right? We may have a completely different understanding of what life is. My view on it is probably I actually talked to this about on the podcast once. Because the laws of physics exist exist the same throughout the universe, it makes sense to me. Um, it makes sense to me that life is probably going to need and I got to do more stuff. All right. Sorry, I got distracted there. It makes sense to me that we're probably going to be in a situation where life needs the same things throughout the universe. So awareness of life would be my answer to life's condition. Okay, so yeah, so that could be very well it also. Being aware. Safe travels and be safe, Cameron. Thank you so much for such wonderful times as always. Thank you. We got some more people jumping on the chat. If you want to take a moment, say hello. Let me know how you're doing and what it is that you want to talk about. We are here chatting about Freemasonry. There's lots of different things we can discuss as it relates to Freemasonry. So jump on the chat, say hello. I started this podcast or stream talking about Freemasonry and people's health and why it might be worth Freemasons investing more time and effort into its members' health, as well as individual Masons investing more time and energy into their own personal health. Then we have started talking about this question up here. What is the core value of Freemasonry? So let me know what you think the core value of Freemasonry might be. And if you're not a Mason, even better, jump in the chat, say hello, and ask any questions you may have about how you view Freemasonry, thoughts you've had about it. And if there's anything else you want to talk about, jump in there and answer, put that in the chat as well. We don't have to just talk about Freemasonry. That's the really fun part. There's lots of different topics to explore. So I'm going to give it about 15 more minutes. I'm going to wait to see if anybody else jumps on the chat to say hello. And if not, then I'm going to call this chat because I still have some appointments to get to today, and then I got to get ready to travel tomorrow. But welcome. Take a few minutes, say hello, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know what you want to talk about. Life is changing now as AI is taking over. I mean, who knows? How many times have we thought life would change and it turns out to be not nearly the change that we expected or thought it would be, right? So we'll see. I think that's all we can kind of say sometimes is we shall see. But, maybe one day, I've talked about this before, maybe one day an artificial intelligence or a robot will end up joining a Masonic Lodge. It strikes me as being possible, being quite plausible anyways. We even talked about that. We talked about life. We talked about aliens, and would an alien join a Masonic Lodge? Which is probably in and of itself a pretty fascinating question and worth examining. Because then it shows like what would an outside alien think of something like Freemasonry? How is Freemasonry impacted? Grand Lodge of ET, says Needle Edition. Well, there you go. Grand Lodge of ET. I think, let me know, Needle, if you want to put in there. We asked a question a while ago. An alien lands on Earth, gets out of his spaceship, or gets out of its spaceship, and says, I want to join the local Masonic Lodge. If you're at the Masonic Lodge, do you give the alien a petition? Yes or no? Let me know what your answer would be. And by the way, don't forget to hit that like button if you can, and answer the poll question if you think that is a core value of Freemasonry. Needle says yes. Would you do it because you're afraid the alien's going to blow you up if you say no, because it's got phasers, or do you think genuinely an alien could make would make a good lodge member and a good Freemason? Same thing with, we asked the question also of a robot becomes self-aware, says it wants to join Freemasonry. Do you give the robot an application? So it's not the first time we've asked those. I'm not scared at all, LOL, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it too. Robot, no. So Michael H, welcome, Michael H. Do you think there are better men who are in K of C, but not Freemasonry? First, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. If you can, please hit that like and subscribe button. answer our poll question. Better men, Springfield, Ohio, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Do I think there are better men who are in KFC but not Freemasonry? I mean, not better, but not worse either. I think that Knights of Columbus is just another fraternal organization. I've used this quote many times. Plenty of sand in the sandbox. So I wish nothing but success for Knights of Columbus. And I think I've known a few Knights of Columbus. Great guys, great men. I don't think they're better than Freemasons, but not worth. It's just different. And I know that there are some, I know it sounds surprising, but there are some who are members of both. It has happened in the past. So yeah, but I think, I wouldn't go like, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I wouldn't go and try to like recruit from Knights of Columbus or anything like that and get them into Freemasonry. If they join Knights of Columbus, maybe they've got friends there or they family there or whatever it is, good for them. So if that makes any sense. Pies are round. Yes, they are. Hard question, good answer. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. By the way, Michael, let me know where you're from, or not sorry where you're from, but how you found our stream. Was it was it just pop up on your YouTube page? Do you subscribe? All those questions. And if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. We'll see if we can keep it going a little bit longer. I do have to get ready though at some point. Go over to my appointments, but we'll see how much longer we can keep this going for. And Michael H., if you're Knights of Columbus, then let me know what you think about Knights of Columbus, because honestly, it's something I know very little about. I wish I knew more about it. I think ultimately, and I've said this before, fraternal organizations are incredibly important. Magically popped up and very randomly, although I've always been interested. Well, I'm glad it popped up. Thank you to the YouTube algorithm for finding some more people to check me out. I do appreciate it. Like I was saying, I hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button. I've been a Mason since 2007. I don't know everything by any means, but for people who are interested, I like to think I can at least provide some answers. So take a few minutes, Michael, and if you have any questions, please, by all means, put them in the chat about Freemasonry, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And you can, even if you don't, you're not a Mason, but maybe you've had interactions, let me know what you think about that poll question, core value of Freemasonry. That is what I would view the core value of Freemasonry is based on my experience. Other people may have different core values. So it's not exclusive to, people kind of decide for themselves in a lot of senses. Michael H., I wouldn't know where to start. So you say you've always been interested in Freemasonry. What is it about Freemasonry that's in Hiram Abiff? What about him? Now I don't know where to start. There's a lot that we can go into with Hiram Abiff, right? He was from a historical perspective, if you want to put it that way, he was kind of the first Grand Master of Freemasons. He pops up in a lot of our ritual. He was really what he was the chief architect at the building of King Solomon's Temple. So there's the legend of Hiram Abiff, which you find in Masonic degrees. But obviously, where Hiram Abiff comes from, there's a million Hirams in the Bible. There are three separate instances of people named Hiram in the Bible: Hiram, king of Tyre. So, I mean, yeah, the Hiram Abiff legend. I mean, a lot of the discussion on Hiram Abiff really are more allegorical and legendary than based on fact. But the simplest answer is, from a Masonic perspective, he was the chief builder and chief architect at the building of King Solomon's Temple. He was murdered, and you can see this in movies they talk about this. He was murdered by ruffians attempting to take from him the secrets of Freemasonry, or secrets of being a Freemason. But the practical, whether he actually existed or not, or whether it is completely allegorical or apocryphal, excuse me, I think is up for debate. The reused stone of 273. I don't know anything about that. Let me do the Google search quickly. Reused stone of 273. Yes, I agree. Both do good work. I mean, I don't know about the reused stone. The refused stone of 273. I don't know much about that either, or anything about that. Refused stone. Okay. Most likely refers to a biblical passage, specifically Psalm 18:22, which says, "The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." The metaphor is often interpreted as Jesus being rejected from Jewish leaders, yet ultimately becoming the foundation of the Christian faith, considered the cornerstone. Well, so I mean, a lot of those terms that I just read are connected to Freemasonry. Certainly, the idea of a cornerstone is heavily connected to Freemasonry. We've done actually cornerstone ceremonies here in Windsor at the City Hall, right? The connections to Christ or Christianity, and stone, obviously, Freemasons, stonework is going to be connected. Freemasonry welcomes men of all faiths. We have Christians, we have Jewish people, Muslims, First Nations, Indigenous, Hindus, all that credits belief in a supreme being. So it wouldn't be, in my opinion, based on what I'm reading here, fair to say that like Jesus Christ is the cornerstone of Freemasonry. But certainly for many members who are Christian, Jesus Christ is their supreme being, their main form of faith. But yeah, I've never heard, in terms of like, at least certainly the first 3 degrees, I've never heard of, the idea of the refused stone, cornerstone, that stuff comes up a lot. And then there are some connections to Christianity, for lack of a better term, for Christianity in Scottish Rite and York Rite, but I'm not a York Rite member. And Scottish Rite, again, I've never heard this specific story or allegory, or the idea of the refused stone of 273. So sorry, Michael, I couldn't provide you more information there. Wish I could have been more help with that one in particular. 4 votes, core value Freemasonry, that the world can be made better through brotherly love, relief, and truth. 3 votes yes, 1 vote no. Oh, the good old signet rings. Up to you. Completely up to you. You can point them in, you can point them out. I once knew somebody who said something I thought was really interesting. He said, whenever he wakes up in the morning, he puts the ring on. He doesn't look. And when he's putting the ring on, he doesn't look, but then after the ring is on, he looks and he checks and he says, if this signet, if they're pointed out, then he takes that as a sign that he needs to focus on helping other people and needs to look out for people who may be in distress. But if the signet rings are pointed inward, then that is a sign that that day he needs to focus more on himself and try to figure out what he's doing wrong. So maybe that's a good way to do it. I don't know. Michael H., let me know if you have any other questions. Sorry I couldn't be of more help with the refused stone. And thank you, everybody who took the time to answer the poll question. What can be done to guard the West Gate better? Oh my gosh. Well, that will have to be discussed at another time because that's such a long conversation. And I honestly don't know if anybody has a good answer to it yet. So many different kind of lodges are popping up with different things. Here's what I'd say. Just get to know the guy as best you can. But we talked about it earlier. Like, should you consider things like a brother's physical health and well-being? Should you look at things like credit scores, credit rating? Should you look at things like criminal record checks? I mean, there's so many difference. What I'd say is really a big thing needs to just be spending more time getting to know the brother as best as you can. And if you can do that, you're more likely to getting to know the potential brother, I should say. So before he becomes a brother, when he's still an applicant, even before he gets an application, invite him to lodge dinners, invite him to refreshments, invite him to special events that are open to the public. Get to know the guy, I think is maybe the best way to guard the West Gate. And then, yeah, maybe we do need a little bit more of an exacting application process. I'm not sure. Where, again, you're looking at physical health, you're looking at mental health, you're requesting financial health checks. Something to consider, anyways. And everybody who's joining us, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We're here chatting about Freemasonry. We've still got let's go another 5-10 minutes or so. I appreciate everybody who's been here so far. Like I said, I still have a busy night tonight. I got some appointments I got to get to. So I'm just going to wait to see if anyone else jumps anything in the chat. We've got, like I said, a few more minutes. So if you're just joining us, please hit that like and subscribe button and let me know, what do you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry? The Real Speed Racer. Welcome, the Real Speed Racer. I hope you can take a few moments, hit that like and subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. What would you say to lodges that are worried about increasing dues and making it unaffordable for some current members? I would say increase the dues. Here's what I'd say. I've personally, in my travels, and I've traveled a fair bit, especially North America, seen no correlation between increasing dues and losing members. And if you do lose some members, you're more than likely going to gain them back, right? The danger is, here's where the danger comes in. So if you are running, if your dues are being maintained artificially low and they're not covering the costs of just breaking even with your building or your lodge, then the danger is when you increase them a little bit, like the brothers are going to say, you've increased our dues, but we're not getting any new value. But the reason you had to increase them is because for so long, the lodge was running at kind of a deficit, right? So when you're increasing your dues, honestly, it sounds counterintuitive. Increase them a lot, but make sure that when you do, you provide value for that increase, right? The biggest danger is increasing the dues and not showing value. So if you increase your dues by $5 a year, how much more value is a brother going to get from that extra $5, right? But by the other side of it, if you increase the dues by $300 a year, well, $300 a year, you can probably provide a lot of value for that $300 more in terms of better food or refreshments or lodge activities. Do you know what I mean? There's so much that can be provided. Michael H., please, if you can answer my question on any level, it'd be appreciated. No answer is considered an answer. I'm not sure what your question you're referring to. If you're referring to the refused stone, I don't, like I said, I don't know enough about it to be able to answer it beyond saying cornerstone is a very Masonic term. Lodges should look after people who are struggling and will help them. Same thing. I agree with that completely. But again, going back to what Speed Racer was saying, if the lodge, in its attempt to help people, is charging dues at a very low level, will it have the financial capability to help people who are struggling? You know? So this whole unaffordable thing, I don't buy that. I've not seen any evidence that an increase in dues results in a reduction in membership. And there's always ways that you can help lodges through things like benevolence. So for whatever it's worth. So Michael H., if you're sometimes, for whatever reason, not everything pops up on the chat. If you'd like to, and your question's not coming through, you can potentially leave it as a comment on one of the videos. Let me see if I can find something. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm just trying to grab a link. Dun, 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 dun. All right. All right. I left a link in the chat, Michael. If you want, you can click on that link and leave your question as a comment. No, I can't see your question about Zionism. YouTube might be blocking it. YouTube will block certain questions depending on what's in it. I can't say because I can't see it. But if you want to leave it as a comment in a chat or as a comment on the link I provided there, I can at least maybe see it that way and then try to answer it. I should see the comment pop up. I mean, Freemasonry, just based on that last word, Freemasonry has no connections to Zionism. I'm not trying to like Freemasonry. I've talked about this before. Freemasonry welcomes men over whatever age it is, 18 to 21 usually, and who believe in a supreme being. So we have men of all faiths: Hinduism, Buddhism, Muslim, Jewish, Christian. I'm actually a member of Lodge Holy Land number 50, which meets out of Tel Aviv, Israel. And there are some interesting connections from historical percentage. There are some interesting connections between Freemasonry, between Masonic philosophy and Judaism, but Zionism, if you were to define Zionism as, well, I guess I should look up the exact definition of it before I go any further to make sure I get this right. Right. If you define Zionism as a nationalist movement originated in Europe with the goal of the creation and support of a Jewish national state, well, then Freemasonry has nothing to do with that one way or the other. Now that the state exists, Israel exists, Freemasonry exists in Israel. As I said, I'm a member of a lodge in Israel, but that is not the same as saying like Freemasonry was connected to Zionism. I'm just trying to see if I can find the comment. Part of your dues go to the Grand Lodge and they increase per capita. Yes, they do. And that's another thing to keep in mind when lodges are afraid to increase their dues. They need to remember that, when a member is annoyed with an increase in dues, they need to remember that the lodges themselves are paying a lot of fees. They're paying fees to their Grand Lodge. They're paying fees to their temple board. They're paying fees to their district association often. So they're paying a lot of different fees to a lot of different people, right? And so things get more expensive. I mean, there's no kind of not there's no simple way to put that, right? Things get more expensive, and as things get more expensive, um, lodges have to make some tough decisions sometimes. Just waiting to see if I can potentially see Michael's question. Should dues be per capita or not? Like how many members a lodge has doesn't really affect how much resources they use. I'm not sure what you mean, Speed Racer. I mean, I don't know how else you assess dues, right? Because so like if it costs, let's say just as an example, it costs Grand Lodge $100,000 to operate per year, your Grand Lodge, right? So in theory, that $100,000 should be, paid for by the membership. And so to me, the simplest way to do that would just be to, you've got 500 or you've got, you've got X number of Masons in your jurisdiction. It costs $100,000 per year. So take the the cost to run, divide it by the number of members, and then that's just what it is, right? And so if one lodge has 500 members and another lodge has 50 members, the dues are going to, be higher for the lodge with 500. Because I don't know, I understand what you're saying. Like the lodge with 500 members isn't necessarily taking up any more resources from Grand Lodge, any more time, effort. Whether you have a lodge meeting with 10 people in your room or whether you have a lodge meeting with 100 people in the room, they're not using any more electricity. They're not using any more space, any more heat. But I just don't know how else you would calculate dues if not per capita. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, right? Whether it's 70 members, if on Monday your lodge with 7 members meets and they have 7 people there, and on Tuesday a lodge with 70 members meet and they have, let's say, 50 people there, yeah, they're both, it costs the same to heat the room, to turn the lights on. But I, the only other way I could see you doing it is not dividing it by per capita, but just saying lodge. So let's say it costs your building $100,000 to operate per year, and you have 10 lodges in the building. Do you charge each lodge $10,000, whether they have 7 members or 7,000 or 700? I just think I get it, but I just think it wouldn't work. Practically speaking, I think you kind of have to do it per capita, because charging a lodge with 7 members the same as a lodge with 70 members, the 7-member lodge is just not going to have the income base to cover that, unless they are getting so many entered apprentice initiations, they can use their initiation fees to cover it. But in my experience, I don't think almost any lodge is getting a sufficient number of initiations to cover those type of fees. They kind of are reliant on the income from their dues paying members, and those dues paying members, so I get it. I understand the argument, but I just, practically speaking, I don't think it would work. I think it would end up significantly harming the smaller lodges, and they'd more than likely end up just going dark or merging with the bigger lodges. But there is that, I've heard discussions like that in the past about, how do you deal with smaller versus bigger lodges taking up space, not taking up space, things like that. So sorry, Michael, I still can't see your question, your comment. All I'll say is Freemasonry exists all over the world. It exists. There's a Grand Lodge of Israel, but Freemasonry itself, to my knowledge, had no involvement with the Zionist movement or Zionism. It does welcome men of every faith, Jewish, Muslim, like I said, Christian. So that's my answer there. Speed Racer, sorry we couldn't provide a better answer. Like I said, I get your point. I just think practically you couldn't so Real Speed Racer, no, I mean, you're touching on a topic that is not new, right? This is, I mean, have a little bit of skin in the game on this one, because I became a member of a lodge that has 11 members, but practically speaking, it has 8, right? We've lost touch. I'm the Martial Master. We've lost touch with a few of these members. There was a big discussion around the idea of whether it made any sense to keep that lodge going or to allow it to kind of go dark and be absorbed by the larger members, the larger lodges, I should say. I am on the view that yes, the bigger lodges end up subsidizing the smaller lodges, but it's worth it. And it's kind of a cost of doing business, because for 2 reasons. First, there are going to be times and instances and circumstances where a new candidate, it's better for the new candidate to go to the smaller lodge. Maybe the smaller lodge meets on a more convenient time for the candidate. Maybe the smaller lodge has friends of the candidate or the applicant. And so if you lose that smaller lodge, that's one less day of the week. That's one less time when an applicant can potentially join. So you lose that potential opportunity, and from a income, like, you lose the potential of the lodge to hold events. And that lodge that I was a part of, that I helped kind of keep going, even with its 8 active members, 11 members total, it held coffee with the cop, coffee with the fire crew. It donated money to various charities. It paid Grand Lodge. It paid the temple board. I think keeping a smaller lodge alive and being subsidized by the bigger lodge ultimately maintains the potential for growth that you lose otherwise. A good example from the business world or sports world, the NBA highly subsidizes the WNBA, but I don't think you should get rid of the WNBA because we saw it had record-breaking growth in 2024. That growth might continue 2025, 2026. There is such a thing as loss leaders in business, and I think smaller lodges can sometimes be those loss leaders. In Tel Aviv, yeah, the Grand Lodge, Lodge Holy Land number 50, the lodge I'm a member of, does meet out of Tel Aviv. Again, I'm an affiliate member. I've never been there myself. I'd like to visit it. There is also a Grand Lodge of Israel in Tel Aviv. So please, if you're joining us, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We need more people liking and subscribing. Core value Freemasonry. The world can be made better through brotherly love, relief, and truth. 5 votes. 60% yes, 40% no. So it looks like 3 yeses and 2 no's. If you said no, let me know what you would say the core value of Freemasonry is, in your opinion. Right. My good friend said he had to join Freemasonry to become sheriff. He is also KFC. Well, I don't know what happened there. I've like, you want to be really, so in my experience, I've never heard of anybody having to join Freemasonry in order to get a job or get a promotion. Now, that's not to say, for example, you may have some bad actors out there who say, like, I'm a Freemason, and if you want to get this job, you need to become a Freemason too. But that type of activity isn't or shouldn't be, and I've never seen it be condoned by the Grand Lodge. It may be that you just have a person saying that to try to get more members in his lodge or something, or it could be a clandestine lodge as well. Clandestine lodges do exist. I've always said this, and I'll say it again, right? Freemasonry, the one thing it offers you exclusively is the opportunity to fight to make the world a better place through brotherly love, relief, and truth. It's not going to help you get a job. It's not going to help you make more money. It's not going to help you find riches. If there are people out there who are Freemasons who are saying, like, in order to get this job, you also need to be a Freemason, or in order to get this promotion, you need to be a Freemason. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Freemasons out there that could be some bad actors, but that shouldn't be happening. The other reason it shouldn't be happening is because one of the tenets of Freemasonry is that you join of your own free will and accord. So if you're joining because you want to get a job or you want, to get a promotion, then you're not really joining of your own free will and accord, you could argue. You're joining for mercenary means. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying it's one of those situations where it sounds like whoever told him he needed to be a Mason to be the sheriff was potentially either a clandestine Mason and not part of a recognized Masonic body, or was just a bad actor. Masonry can help you make friends and connections and form bonds. They can be positive or negative. It's up to you. That's very true. It's almost always up to you, right? Whether something is positive or negative is almost always up to you. The typical thing people say in Freemasonry is you get out of it what you put into it, which I agree with. I think that's very, very true. You do get out of it what you put into it. But I do think overall Freemasonry is a benefit to the world. I'm a big believer in that. I think the world is made better because Freemasonry is part of it. Yeah, we're the same way in Ontario. But I think what Speed Racer was saying is that then fair, because you have situations where you have a small lodge which ends up giving very little to Grand Lodge, and a big lodge ends up paying so much more that it subsidizes a smaller lodge, right? The bigger lodges, especially from a building perspective, the bigger lodges without a doubt subsidize the smaller lodge's existence. But that might be worth it from a potential perspective and a loss leader perspective. I still don't see, sorry, from Michael, a comment on that video. Clandestine lodges exist. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a clandestine lodge is a lodge basically that is not recognized by the jurisdiction. So if I went out and started Cameron's Masonic Order, um, then it would be clandestine because it would not be recognized. Now, it's possible to gain recognition, but my view on it has always been, I've said this before, plenty of sand in the sandbox. I have no problem if some guy grew up and he loved like the movie National Treasure with I can't think of his name now, with so it'll come to me. Nicolas Cage loved that movie and loved the symbols, but decided he wanted to start his own fraternity, and he was going to call it, John's Masonic Lodge of National Treasure. And he takes kind of the symbols and whatever, like plenty of sand in the sandbox. He's welcome to start whatever group he wants. The danger is if John then says, and this is a Masonic Lodge that is recognized by Masonic lodges around the world, right? That's not, because then you're going to have people joining, giving him money, but not being able to visit or travel anywhere and visit any other Masonic lodges anywhere else in the world because it's clandestine. And when you aren't able to travel and visit other lodges, you are missing out on a very vital and important part of the craft. So there is that. Definitely true. I'm some of those wealthiest people, non-wealthy people in lodges. Yeah. Well, that would be. Do you mean like a clandestine lodge? Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to establish recognition, especially if you're just, again, some guy in your garage who decide to start your own Masonic lodge for fun. That's not going to. It's going to be very hard to get recognition. It's going to take a long time, and I mean, Masonry already exists, right? So you don't need to start your own thing. But again, people can start whatever they want. I think it's just important that if they're starting something, they make sure that other people understand what it is and what it is and is not connected to. All right, this has been a lot of fun, but I do believe I have to take off now because I still have to get ready for my appointments tonight. If you haven't done so yet, please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know, check out some of our other videos. I will be trying to do another one of these tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling, so it's going to be tough, but I think I can potentially jump on and do a live stream tomorrow, maybe from the bus as I head to Alma, Michigan for what should be a really special event. So thank you guys so much. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment, all the things you're supposed to say. And thank you everybody for taking part. Thanks for coming on my feed. Take care. Michael, thank you for joining. I do appreciate it very much. Like I said, I'm going to try to be back tomorrow. So we shall see.